We're going to continue our lessons from the Old Testament as we do every Monday. We are reading from Samuel 1. Samuel 1, chapter 14 and verse 1. Chapter 14 and verse 1. Samuel 1st, chapter 14 and verse 1. One day Jonathan, the son of Saul, said to the young man who carried his armor, "Come, let us go over to the Philistine garrison on the other side." But he did not tell his father. Saul was staying in the outskirts of Gibeah, in the pomegranate cave at Migron. The people who were with him were about 600 men, including Ahizah, the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, sons of Phinehas, son of Eli, the priest of the Lord in Shiloh, wearing an ephod. And the people did not know that Jonathan had gone. With the passes by which Jonathan sought to go over to the Philistine garrison, there was a rocky crag on the one side of the and the rocky crag on the other side. The name of the one was Bozez, and the name of the other Sini. The one crag rose on the north in front of Michmash, and the other on the south in front of Geba. Jonathan said to the young man who carried his armor, "Come, let us go over to the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord would work for us, for nothing can hinder the Lord from saving by many or by few." And his armor-bearer said to him, "Do all that is in your heart. Do as you wish. Behold, I am with your heart and soul." Then Jonathan said, "Behold, we will cross over to the men, and we will show ourselves to them. If they say to us, 'Wait until we come to you,' then we will stand in our place and will not go up to them. But if they say, 'Come up to us,' then we will go up, for the Lord has given them into our hand. And this shall be a sign to us." So both of them sold themselves to the garrison of the Philistines. And the Philistines said, "Look, Hebrews are coming out of the holes where they have hidden themselves." And the men of the garrison hailed Jonathan and his armor-bearer and said, "Come up to us, and we will show you a thing." And Jonathan said to his armor-bearer, "Come up after me, for the Lord has given them into the hand of Israel." Then Jonathan climbed up on his hands and feet, and his armor-bearer after him. And they fell before Jonathan, and his armor-bearer killed them after him. And that first strike which Jonathan and his armor-bearer made killed about 20 men within as it were half a furrow's length and in an acre of a land. And there was a panic in the camp, in the field, and among all the people. The garrison and even the raiders trembled, the earth quaked, and it became a very great panic. And the watchmen of Saul in Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude was dispersing here and there. Then Saul said to the people who were with him, "Count and see who has gone from us." And when they had counted, behold, Jonathan and his armor-bearer were not there. So Saul said to Ahijah, "Bring the ark of God here." For the ark of God went at that time with the people of Israel. Now while Saul was talking to the priest, the tumult in the camp of the Philistines increased more and more. So Saul said to the priest, "Withdraw your hand." Then Saul and all people who were with him rallied and went into the battle. And behold, every Philistine's sword was against his fellow, and there was a great confusion. Now the Hebrews who had been with the Philistines before that time, who had gone up with them into the camp, even they also turned to be with the Israelites who were with Saul and Jonathan. Likewise, when all the men of Israel who had hidden themselves in the hill country of Ephraim heard that the Philistines were fleeing, they too followed hard after them in battle. So the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle passed beyond Beth Aven. Amen. Something very important happened, and more specifically at the time that Saul moved forward with his first sin, as he did not obey the word of the Lord and he did not act exactly as the word of the Lord commanded. How important is it for us to obey the commands of the Lord, because the Lord wants us to do exactly as he's mentioning, especially those last days that are evil and full of cunningness. This is what is going to keep us in faith. But if we do as we wish, and he did what he wanted, but that was fear. The problem was not that he was afraid, but the problem was that he did not wait a little bit more. Samuel said 7 days. Saul waited for 7 days, and just before Samuel was to come, as truly he was to come on the 7th day at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, he, trembling with fear, as he was seeing the people of Israel dispersing, and the people of Philistines to come up against him, he said that without praying or delivering a sacrifice, we cannot beat them. And indeed he went to sacrifice up to the Lord by himself, even though that was not what the Lord wanted. And indeed he sacrificed, something that saddened God. And the word of the Lord says that God rejected Saul as a king. However, God is with Israel, and Saul selected 3,000 men as his garrison, and all together gathered up, some of them with Jonathan, some of them with Saul. The problem now, though, is that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Jonathan is taking a decision, and he's taking on the garrison of the Philistines on the mountain. That was heard, and the Philistines were stirred up. 30,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, and so many and soldiers that were as many as the sand of the sea, and they were going up against the Israelites. And the people of Israel were afraid, and they were dispersing, and they were left with 600 men, Saul and Jonathan, and 600 men without any armor and without any sword, as the Philistines had taken every kind and piece of metal that there was, and some even rebelled and left the people of Israel, and they stood and joined the Philistines. And most of them were hidden, most of the other Israelites were hidden in the hills and the valleys, so that they can get away from the battle that was incoming against Israel. After the foolishness, let's say, if we may say so, from Jonathan, the foolish action of Jonathan's. But for us to truly judge if something is foolish, or whether or not it is a guidance from the Spirit, surely we can see it by the result. The tree can be seen and understood and evaluated by its fruit. There's no good tree that can bring bad fruit, and there's no bad tree that can bring good fruit. That's impossible. That is why now afraid, and the Israelites against the Philistines, they were quaking from fear. They were waiting for the destruction. However, one day, Jonathan, who is truly guided by God because he has a specific characteristic that we're going to see later on, and he himself and his armor carrier, he had only one weapon, and that weapon was scried, but his armor bearer. They took a decision, something that can be seen again as foolish action, but it's not, because he has a good spirit, and that's the message for us today. Now Jonathan says to the young man who carried his armor, "Come, let us go over to the Philistine garrison on the other side." And they were on top of a rock, and they were not able to easily go up to that garrison. If they see us, we're going to show ourselves. If they see us and say, "Come to us," we're going to stay and go, because what we've done is not from the Lord. But if they say to us, "Come to us," then that is a sign that we are putting that God is able, not with just many, but also with few, to save the Israelites and give away the Philistines to them. Would you ever do it? I would never do it. Only if God, with much strength and power, puts it in your heart. And that thought is including two main characteristics. The first is that they are uncircumcised, therefore God is against them. And we too are circumcised, therefore God is with us. If therefore we stand as against those who are uncircumcised and we are circumcised, it doesn't matter how many we are, but what matters is what God is going to do. And that is an amazing thought. And I would dare even say a frightening thought. And the word of the Lord actually says, and I've read it in Jeremiah, that you need to go forward amongst in the path of Jerusalem, and see and ask in the city. Go in, see and ask. If you can find one person that has two main characteristics, to do what is rightful in front of the eyes of the Lord, and to ask about the truth of the Lord, then because of that person, I will act miraculously. Because of that person. These characteristics was what Jonathan had. He was acting accordingly to the righteousness of God, and he was interested about the truth of the Lord, as he was seeing people that were uncircumcised against them, without power in his eyes, therefore. And he also saw in himself and his armor bearer two people that had the grace of the Lord on them, as long as God provides them and confirms the sign they've mentioned. And to us, that is the commandment of the Lord. And indeed, they saw themselves in front of the eyes of Philistines, and they were waiting for them to reply. Now, the Philistines, as they saw them, with boastness, with a boastful spirit, and because there were many, and there were just two, they said, Come to us, because we're going to show you a thing. And Jonathan was happy and said to his armor bearer, "Come after me, for the Lord has given them into the hand of Israel." And I repeat that there were 30,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen, and armies that were not able to be counted. All those were given today to the Israelites, not to us, said Jonathan, but to the Israelites. The main and the most beautiful characteristic, apart from all the things we said before, of Jonathan was his faith. Where was he putting his faith on? He was putting his faith on a Lord that could not be outdone. Do you have that kind of faith? How important is it, my dear brethren, for us to believe that our God, Lord and Savior, is Almighty, and nothing is impossible to Him, and He is making and creating miracles in the lives of those who are asking for their guidance and doing what was right. That was the person that God was looking for, just one, and He is still looking on our days. The Lord is looking for a person who is asking for the guidance and the truth of the Spirit, and for him to take every decision to do exactly as the righteousness of God commands him. Just one person. Now, imagine if he has found such a church, not just one person, what God is going to be able to do. And that is why, my dear brethren, the Old Testament has been given to us for our doctrine. All the Bible is from God and is for our edification, so that we may be taught by the truths that are written in the Word of the Lord. If we study the Word of the Lord, therefore, we are truly from the ones who are asking for His righteousness, even if we see it in the Old Testament for our edification, or a New Testament for our salvation. Whoever studies is that person, because he who doesn't has no edification or advancement. If you studied but you're not studying now, you have no edification. You have no good result. He who stays and studies the Word of the Lord, asking for doctrine and the truth of the Lord, and he takes on a decision to remain on those and act according to His word, then the Lord is going to bless him. No matter what he's going to do, the Lord is going to bless him. No matter what the Lord is going to do, the person is going to do, the Lord is going to bless him. It is very important for us, therefore, to ask for the righteousness of God through the word of the Lord, but for our faith to also be advancing through the hearing of the word of the Lord. Those are the two main characteristics that can create a person, that can create in a person to ask and search for the truth, and decision to act accordingly to the truth of the word, and as he hears the word of the Lord, for his faith to be edified and advanced. And we do not wish for anything else in our lives. And the Lord is searching for just one person to have that mindset, so that He can bless and glorify His name, so that God can prove that He is Almighty, and nothing is impossible to Him, and everything is possible to the person who is believing. Not only, therefore, he is asking for the truth by the direction of the Spirit, that is Jonathan. Not only is he acting accordingly to the righteousness of God, but he also has faith, so that when he comes up, and he didn't go up just simply walking, but it was hard for him to go up. And he now turns to his armor bearer and says, "Come up, let us go, because today the Lord has given the Philistines to us, the Israelites." Now what God is able to do. As he goes up, 20 people fell down. And the armor bearer was killing them after Jonathan. 20 people in half of an acre. And that remind me of the time that they were going against the Lord, and they were searching to arrest him, and he said that I am they fell down. Not the foolish and fake things that the people are doing, but rather the true things that the Lord is providing. And the armor bearer was one by one killing them. And it was not just that. And that first strike which Jonathan and his armor bearer made killed about 20 men within, as it were, half a pharaoh's length in an acre of the land. But that was not it. And there was a panic in the camp, in the field, and among all the people, says in verse 15. Everyone fell down by themselves, and they were slaughtered. All the garrison, even the raiders, trembled. That is why we're not supposed to believe in rumors. We're not afraid because God is with us. There's a difference between us being aware and praying, and there's a difference between us being panicking and afraid, because the love of God is casting the fear away. We're not afraid because God is with us if we are with Him. If we are from the people that are searching for the truth by studying the Word of the Lord, with the understanding and the will to remain, and we have taken the decision to be doers of the Word, and we are taking and we pay every attention for our faithfulness to be advancing when we hear the word of the Lord, then indeed we are the people of God. And I repeat, and I read again the verse 15. And there was a panic in the camp, in the field, and among all the people. The garrison and even the raiders trembled. The people that were going around raiding the people of Israel, and the earth quaked, and it became a very great panic. And the result was that there was a fear of God casted on in the armies of the Philistines. And from now on, you're going to see that each and every one has turned to his neighbor. And as we continue reading, the watchmen of Saul and Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude was dispersing here and there. It was dispersing here and there, and with shock, because Saul knew nothing, and no one knew anything. Only God knew about the decision of Jonathan and his armor bearer. What is happening? Let us see, they said, probably. Who is not with us? Why is this happening? Because that is a miracle. Because of who is this happening? And indeed they searched, and behold, Jonathan and his armor bearer were not there. And Saul said to the people with him, after they found out that Jonathan and his armor bearer was not there, bring Ahias, and also bring the ark of God, because he had an ephod. And because the ark of God was with the people of Israel. But as he saw the Philistines dispersing, and the noise and the tumult in the camp of the Philistines increased more and more, Saul said to the priest, withdraw your hand, because we're going to attack. He is the Lord. And they gathered up, and all the people that were with him, they rallied up and went into the battle. And what did they see? Every Philistine sword was against his fellow, and there was a very great confusion. And that is God. But that was not just a result for victory. Something that when I read, I thought it was very more important. Now the Hebrews who had been with the Philistines, the ones who have been away and withdrawn from the Hebrews, when the glory of God is revealed, even those who have been driven away are coming back. And the word of the Lord continues saying, before that time, and who had gone up with them into the camp, even they also turned to be with the Philistines, who were with Saul and Jonathan. Even those who have been driven away returned to the camp of the Israelites. Isn't that beautiful? When I've read that, I was very much liking it. It's not just that there was great victory for Jonathan and the Israelites, but apart from the triumph, the blessing of those who came back also was given to the people of the Lord. And it wasn't just that. Likewise, when all the men of Israel had hidden themselves in the hill country of Ephraim, all the men of Israel, the lukewarm, the ones who saw the issue and ran, even they followed hard after them in the battle. Are those things even possible? Blessed is the name of the Lord. And they all joined together. And in that day, the Lord saved the Israelites, and the battle passed beyond Beth Aven. And that is indeed a triumph. Blessed be the name of the Lord. With just two people, with one person actually, that was Jonathan, and with a servant, that was his armor bearer. Jonathan, according to the word of the Lord, according to the heart of the Lord, and by the power of the Spirit, and his armor bearer, according to the heart of Jonathan. Two people that were together as one. No one is having any objections. Jonathan is not afraid, but the armor bearer was not afraid as well. A triumph indeed. A triumph that is complete in the next chapter that we're going to read next Monday, as the people of Israel now fought against all his enemies, against the Moabs, against the people, the Ammonites, against Edom, against Zobah, against the Philistines, against all the people, and wherever he turned, says the word of the Lord, he rooted them. That is in verse in chapter 14 and verse 47. He did violently and struck the Amalekites and delivered the Israelites out of the hands of those who plundered them. Therefore, that was not just a momentum or just a moment, a triumph of just one battle, but there was a complete triumph just with two people. And now, my dear brethren, what is really important is to see the church of the last days and what God is able to do. Remember, 120 people, men and women, were in the higher place in Jerusalem the day of the Pentecost. And what did they do? They did exactly what the Lord told them to do. Remain in Jerusalem, do not depart from there, and wait for the Spirit of the Lord to come on you, to come upon you. And then you're going to receive power, and the result will be with that power, as the word of the Lord says, that you need to become steadfast and become powerful in your inner person, because there's the false doctrine that the Spirit is going to make you like Samson and you're going to be physically more strong. That was in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, you have powers in your inner person, and the power is of the spirits in your inner person, and the result is that you will be able to not be afraid of the name of the Lord, and for you to be able to keep the word of the Lord. It doesn't matter how powerful and strong you are. Jonathan's power in his armor bearer was tragically weak against the multitude of the Philistines. Tragically weak, it was the power of the 120 people in the high place in the day of the Pentecost against the Israelites, against the Romans, against the Galileans, and against the Greeks, against all people. Do not think of your weakness, but esteem the power of searching for the truth, asking for the direction of the Lord. That is the only meaningful thing to do. What does God want from you? What is He waiting for you to do? Firstly, and secondly, a steadfast decision to remain in the word of the Lord. If He led you this far, He's going to continue doing so. If He taught you thus far, He's going to continue doing so. Stay on those, remain those, study those, and then your advance will be clear to all people. And be aware when the blessing of the Lord comes to your life. Because indeed the Lord is going to bless you. If you truly ask for the truth and you acting accordingly to the righteousness of the Lord. But be aware when He's going to bless you. Do not be like Hezekiah. The Lord blessed him. Indeed, he was able to defeat the Assyrians easily. He even sent an angel and he struck down 85,000 of his enemies. He's able to do even much more than that. And when he got ill and sick, he even healed the king. But it was a time for him to be tested. If his heart was according to the word of the Lord, or if his heart has boasted, and he raised himself up higher than the Lord. And the king of Babylon sent people so that they can see the things that God has done in Hezekiah's life. And instead, and what did he do? He saw it himself and the blessings of God towards him. Isn't that amazing? Do not sow the blessings of the Lord in your life, but sow your humbled spirit and your broken heart, so that you continue to work towards your salvation. When I see a young girl, let's say 8 or 10 years of age, I go up and say, be aware, you're beautiful, but you need to remain humble. If you remain humble, then the Lord is going to bless you much. But if you boast, even those you have, you're going to lose them. One by one, you're going to lose them. And you're not going to be able to find them again. Be aware. Watch yourself. If God has blessed you, be aware of what you're exalting and what you're sowing. Christ and Him crucified. Nothing more, says Apostle Paul. And if I have something to boast, it is for my afflictions and weaknesses. And to that person that has learned to boast about his weaknesses, then the Lord, so that He can help that person reach heavens, He sent an angel so that He can afflict them. Isn't that amazing? I don't want to have an angel afflicting me. I don't want to have such a thing in my life. Please, God, give me a spirit of humility. But the Lord has not blessed me that much. But even the little that He's going to bless me, I'm not going to sow that. I'm just going to sow the glory of God. I'm going to sow the weaknesses that I have. And I'm going to sow the sacrifice of the Lord. And I'm going to say that with absolute certainty, it's not me, but it's the Lord. Do you understand what happened to Hezekiah? From a good tree, he became a tree without a fruit. And Isaiah says that now you have acted with foolishness to sow to them your riches. I'm going to say to you this: I'm going to take away everything from you. And Hezekiah humbled himself and said, please, Lord, no. Since you humble yourself, I'm not going to take them away from you, but from your descendants. And the son that he had, he was the most sinful person, the worst king. And because of that king, the absolute destruction of the people of Israel came upon to the people. He was the son of Hezekiah, and he was destroyed. And what did God say to that person? Because you humble yourself, these things are not going to happen in your days, but it's going to happen to your continuation. And he said that this is a good word. You don't really care about your continuation, really. But the answer seems to be that he only cared about himself. Lord, please protect us. Your children will be captivated and will become slaves and eunuchs to the king of Babylon. And everything will be destroyed because of you, Hezekiah. That is your fruit. Because why? Because the Lord blessed you, you boasted. Saying, let me show you the silver, my palace. Let me show you all things. See what God has done in my life, and I'm so good. But instead, humble yourself in front of the Lord. He's the one who blessed me. He's the one who provided me with mercy, because mercy means that even if I'm not worthy, He did bless me. Even if I don't deserve it, He healed me. May God protect us, because it is very important. As we were set free from sin and serving now only God, a servant means humility. Becoming servants of God, and that means that you have a Lord, and the glory belongs only to that Lord. As you became servants of God, then and only then your fruit will be towards blessings. And even if your wife is not a believer, and if your husband is not a believer, because of the Spirit that is on you, your children are going to be blessed. As long as you are humble. As long as you have no root of bitterness in your heart. Only glory and exaltation to the Lord. Because from your heart, all the things in your life come. And how am I supposed to know what is dwelling in my heart? And the answer is from what I'm saying. That is why you need to listen to what you're saying. And I was thinking many different things that I've done and I did not like, and the Lord did not like. And the Lord told me that time that I'm listening to you. And I said to the Lord, please help me. And He replies that I'm seeing you. And I was afraid. And that was the nature of the First Apostolic Church. More than 500 people saw the Lord being lifted up, but only 120 remained until the day of Pentecost. They didn't know what was about to happen. They didn't know exactly what would happen. The Lord said that the Spirit's going to come upon them. They knew Jeremiah that was visited by the Spirit of the Lord. They knew the things of the Old Testament though, but they stayed and remained. Not after many days. Maybe some of them were waiting for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. They probably had many different things to do, and they left. They were dispersing here and there. May the Lord protect us, so that we may not be afraid and remain, so that we may not be driven away, but to study and remain to the word of the Lord. People and servants of the Lord. And the result is that in the 10th day, not later, much later, the Lord sent down His power and His Spirit. And they saw flaming tongues coming down from the sky, heavenly. And His mouth started speaking in foreign tongues. As they were filled with the Spirit, they started speaking in foreign tongues. And as the Spirit was giving, the tongues that was Spirit was given to them. And there was a surprise among the people. And they were shouting as well, because the people outside of the house were listening to them. And even though that the houses back then were not as soundproof as they are now, but then Peter came out with the 12, and he performed the first sermon done by the Spirit in front of the eyes of people. The result was that 3,000 people believed to the Lord, and they believed in the sermon of Peter. They were baptized, and the first apostolic church was created. 3,000 people indeed. How many people would Jerusalem have at that time? 20,000, 30, 100,000. 3,000 in one day. 5,000 the next day. And in a few years, millions of people, a multitude of people of Israel believed, and they remained zealous in the word of the Lord, as that was the Christianity for the Israelites. But for us, it's 4 things. But for us, a different thing. May God protect us, so that we remain to the word of the Lord. There are not many things that God is asking from us. But let me tell you something else. It's easy. Is it indeed? It's easy because you're not going to do it. God is going to give it to you. You only need to be aware to not boast. Be aware of the false doctrine. Be aware of your heart. Be watchful, waiting for the Lord, and always pray so that you may not fall into temptation, and everything else is going to be done by God, especially those last days. They're going to be happening things that never happened before, for the glory of the last house, and it will be much more greater than that of the first one. What is going to happen? If 2 people, not Jonathan and armor-bearer, the 2 people though, that were able, because it was not them, it was a Spirit, but if the 2 of them were able to be triumphant against the multitudes of the Philistines, because they had the direction of the Spirit, because they were able to see between who's uncircumcised and who's circumcised and what that means, imagine how much more the Lord is going to do now. And that is why we need to pray, because temptation is near, and the devil is next to us, and our fight is not against flesh and blood, but is against Satan and the master of this world. And that is why you need to always pray. We need to be awake and aware for our heart to not be driven away, so that our minds cannot go out of the path or the way of the righteousness of God. And we need actually to be awake with every awareness, so that we may know that whatever we think of, the Lord is listening. Whatever we say, the Lord is hearing. And whatever we are doing, the Lord is seeing. May God protect us. Because we truly want, all of us, I'm sure of it, we want to see the glory of God in the midst of us. Amen.